Hello and welcome to today's SCOM-a-thon workshop week. And today's topic will be about reporting basics, alert tuning, and SCOM auditing. My name is Bob Cornelissen. I'm from TopQore. And let's first examine today's topics. So today's topics will include some introductions. And the next part will be about SCOM reporting essentials, and it contains an exercise as well. And the next topic will be about SCOM tuning, especially alert tuning. We will look at the data report. We will do an exercise. The next thing will be MP Viewer. I will be doing a demo and an exercise about that. And also we will look at Override Explorer and Override Creator, which are some small tools created by Microsoft and maintained in the community. And lastly, we will look at Easy Tune as well, also to tune management packs. And there will be a choice to run either exercise 4 or 5 at the end of that story. We will talk about that in a second. And lastly, we will talk about SCOM auditing features, which got included in SCOM 2019 UR2. Now, to get set up with the exercises, first of all, we have a PDF posted with all of the exercises and links to the prerequisites. You can find it if you go to the website topcore.com with a Q and scroll down and find the purple banner down the page and click a link near the bottom. I will just display that. So topcore.com, either go to webinars at the top or just scroll down a little bit until you see the purple banner. If you click on it, you will get to the webinar page belonging to this webinar. And then at the bottom, there is the lab exercises manual, which you can download. It is a PDF. And the PDF looks like this. So there's the exercises, the requirements for each of the exercises. And we also have some optional exercises which require some additional software like EasyTune, or exercise 6 would be SCOM 2019 with update rollup 2. And from there, you can start the exercises right below. You will find all of them there. So exercises 1 to 4, you can run on any SCOM version and even in production, because it is mainly reporting. And some of the smaller tools we are using, we are actually not making any changes. We are just looking at things and clicking around. Now, there is an optional exercise 5, which is about EasyTune. If you don't have EasyTune and you want it, you can go to the EasyTune website and download it there and import it. Running either exercise 4 or 5 is a choice. You can select which one you want to run. And then at the end is exercise 6, which is also optional. And that is because it requires SCOM 2009 UR2 at the last, which is the last version at currently, but also the least version you need. So, however, this can be run in production if you have this version there, because it's again only reporting. So go to this website, download the PDF from the workshop purple banner, and download the prerequisites if needed. All right, so moving on to the introductions. First of all, I will be your today's speaker today. I'm a Microsoft enthusiast since a long time. My nickname is SCOM Bob. I've been a Microsoft MVP 9 times now, and I am a managing consultant and technical director at TopQore, which is an international company. We will talk about that later. When not asleep or playing with IT-related matter, yes, I love to play some billiards, carom billiards in my case. And I'm heavily involved in House of Tales charity, which is a dog shelter running in Thailand. And the charity is run from the Netherlands. Just to introduce to you my company, TopQore. We are an international team of IT enthusiasts. We are founded in the Netherlands. However, we have people working from other countries as well. We do cloud and data center management and monitoring. Most of what we do is related to SCOM. So we do trainings, implementations, migrations, and upgrades. We have a SCOM health check we can run. We do some implementations and all of this. We also have a blog at topcore.com, which is about mainly SCOM, Azure Monitor, System Center, some Windows related things as well. And we regularly organize or speak at events. So international events like MMS, Express Live, WMAC User Group, Workplace Ninjas. And we also host our own webinars, so you can find them there on the page. So let's first of all start with the SCOM reporting essentials. There will be another session about reporting later this week, which is not going into the very essentials. It will go much deeper than that and actually go into writing custom queries and custom reports. But today's session has all of the basics around reporting, which you can run directly from your SCOM console. So the agenda is a very short introduction, reporting intro, and some different types of reports that we will be looking at. So first of all, my goal is to get you to use SCOM reporting. Actually, all three main topics for today have to do in some way or another with reporting, as you will see. It'll all come back to that because there's a lot of data in the data warehouse, which you can query around using your SCOM console or capacity management or any other thing that you might need reports for. So my goal is for you to start using SCOM reporting if you are not already, or make better use of it if possible. So first of all, let's talk about the stakeholders for reporting. So who can benefit from reporting? So the first role which comes to mind is always those who might be asking you for reports, which might be your direct IT managers. Another group might be capacity management, because SCOM actually collects a lot of data around CPU, memory, disks, and all of these kind of things. You might get some information for capacity management from there. Another group might be auditors. They might want to look at what the environment looks like, give me some basic numbers, give me some capacity numbers. Are you actually looking at that? But also maybe some SCOM auditing features, which we are running into much later. Company managers, not from IT, so department managers usually, they want to know if their systems have been running and if they need to add capacity or other things to their systems. And lastly, you have SCOM admins. So SCOM admins usually tend to forget the reporting pane. But actually there are a few examples of some very useful things in there, as you will find out later today as well in these sessions. So first of all, let's start with the reporting console. In SCOM, you will see the monitoring pane usually, but there's also this green box at the bottom called reporting. If you go to reporting, you will see some folders in there with all kinds of reports. There is the Microsoft generic report library, which I like very much because it's the basis of a number of other reports in here. So it is used as a base and you can expand on that, or you can go directly to the reports in the folders to the left-hand side. So if you're looking at the Microsoft generic report library, you will see some basic reports such as alerts, availability, some events, health-related, overrides, performance. What is also important to look at is the details at the bottom. Actually, we will talk about that in a second as well. So availability, alerts, performance, and events, those are, let's say, the main things that we are looking at generally. Keep your eye on the report details at the bottom, because it can actually contain a lot of extra information. So what are some of the problems that we run into with SCOM reporting? First of all, time. So time is always a problem. We always are doing a lot of other things. So looking at reporting is usually not the first thing when we are doing other things. Second is knowledge. So you actually need to know that what SCOM reporting does, how it works, and how to avoid empty reports, because this is also happening a lot. And if you try and create some reports and they're always empty, then you tend to give up very fast. So let's start with that one. So what if you have an empty report? So if you have an empty report, there might be a few things going on. Either one might be possible, or maybe multiple of these are possible. So the first possibility is that data is not collected at all. So if data is not collected at all, of course, you cannot report on it either. So the trick here is to go to the SCOM monitoring pane and go to a performance view and actually see if you can draw lines for that counter and if it is there at all for your selected server. The second might be that there is a data warehouse problem, because all of these reports, they run against a data warehouse database. So if there is a problem there, then you might not get to see the data either. In that case, you will need to troubleshoot, looking into some of the alerts coming in SCOM or Windows event logs. And if you are stuck, don't hesitate to call us. We are happy to help. Another potential reason is that the wrong target has been selected. So if you try and retrieve the database free space from a website, then it's probably not going to work, because one is a database and one is a website. So targeting the right way will actually also give you the information that you need. It might sound funny to you right now, but this actually happens a lot, that the wrong target has been selected. The trick here is also, again, if you are looking at the reporting pane and you select a report without opening it, you will actually see the report details at the bottom. Usually it will also list some of the potential targets you can target at. Next would be the time frame. So it might be that you will have to look at the last 24 hours if you have recently imported a management pack. But it could also be that some of this data, for instance, if you are targeting or looking at daily data, that the daily data has not been aggregated yet. So in that case, you might want to go like a week back and see if there is any data there. And another item would be data aggregation. So if you are looking at hourly data or daily data in the data warehouse in these kind of reports, and you are trying to look for the last 5 minutes, you will not find it there because the data has not aggregated yet. In some cases, this might point back to a data warehouse problem where the aggregation actually doesn't run. So don't fear empty reports, just find out what's going on. One of these will likely be your solution. Right, so coming back to management pack reports, well, several management packs actually come with their own set of reports. A good example of that would be the SQL management pack, but also the Windows management pack. There's also reports in there. What I especially want to try and point out here are the report details. So we have selected here a SQL database engine counters report at the top, and at the bottom you can see the report details. And in this case, it actually contains a lot of information, such as the counters being used, some best practices, targeted objects, and parameter options. So the targeted object in this case is pointed out by the red arrow, SQL Database Engine. It'll actually also state right below it. Create a state view or performance view by choosing the DB engine type, and then you can actually see if there's any data in there from the monitoring pane. But from the reporting, if you select this type, then this report should give you some data. Now, some performance reports, there are actually, I would say, 3 main types of performance reports. 2 of them, again, come from the generic report library. These are performance and performance detail. So performance is basically drawing a direct line, such as what you know from the monitoring pane. So you get a graph, you draw a line, and that's about it. The performance detail actually goes a little bit deeper into that. It gives a potential to aggregate data from multiple machines, but also to show you the highest and lowest measured values and the standard deviation. We will actually be looking at this specific report later on and also have that in the exercise. And then there's a 3rd main type of reports for performance, and that is the Windows operating system reports. So you are actually looking at one of those right now. This report is specifically created for displaying data for a 7-day period, so 1 week. And it shows some counters around CPU, memory, disk, and network, which is very useful to look at. One tip is try to use a short time period first while testing these kind of reports, especially if you are trying to run a report aggregating data across like 500 servers. You might want to first use a shorter time period and not just immediately create one for a whole quarter. So it's easier to just select yesterday to today, see if you get any data, and then expand your data time frame and run it again. So looking at performance detail report, this is what it looks like. It's one of my favorite reports. It is very useful for targeting larger groups of objects and inspecting them for abnormalities. So for example, in this picture, we see at least one machine having a daily peak in processor usage showing in the blue area of the graph. And I actually want to find out which one is causing it. So there is a trick to this, which I will show you in the demo. I wrote a blog post about it years ago to show how to zoom in to every object. So in this case, I have a report across 14 objects, which you can see in the bold right in the middle of the report. And if there is no deviations here or nothing abnormal, for instance, everything would stay within the 0 to 30% line, then I wouldn't need to look at any specific server because they would all be okay. But if there are some spikes in this report, then I would actually want to zoom in a little bit. So what we do is we target a group, we run the report, and once we are there, we are using the actions button, which is the one I'm trying to point out to you right now. It's right in the middle of the report, right above the graph. And from there, you can select performance details for every object. Now, the trick to reporting across large numbers of servers would be to schedule this parent report targeted at a specific group. So this group might be all Windows computers, for instance, which will not change as being a group, so the name will be the same. However, the contents of the group might change because you are adding servers and removing servers every month. And from there, once you run this parent report every month, you can export this. Actually, you can expand it into a child report and then export it from there. So there is a blog post at the bottom with a link, and I can actually show you that. Also, if you are looking in the SCOM monitoring pane and you are going to a state view, for instance, here I have the Windows Server state selected. I have one of the servers selected, and then I can see in the right-hand side in the task pane, there are also a number of report tasks you can run, which are then targeted at whatever you have selected here. So in this case, I selected one specific Windows server. Then I can run a task looking at the health of this Windows server or configuration changes or alerts just by opening one of these reports. So state view, task pane, and we can select a report from there. Now, once you have run a report, you can actually do some other things with it. So first of all, what you can do is you can export a report by either using a button in a menu or by going File, Export, and you will see a number of options there. So the first option, the first example is that you can export a report from an open report, which you can run already. So if you run it, you will see this option, and you can export it, for instance, into some of these main data types, these main formats, which would be, for instance, Excel, HTML, or PDF. If you run Excel, then it will actually try and expand the data tables below the graphs as well. And a PDF will just show the report as you have it currently open. What also happened is a few years ago, I ran into a problem that the PDF option by default saves a report in a letter paper format, which is current in the United States. But when printing in Europe, often gets a printer error because the A4 paper size is used here. I wrote a blog post about it, detailing what to do to add these two PDF in A4 options to the menu, which works for both SQL 2005 and everything above SQL 2008 and up. So you can find that option right there. And as you see in the picture, that will add PDF in A4, landscape, and portrait in my case. But you can see there are multiple possibilities there. Another option might be to save a report to a management pack, so you can actually run it later on again. So what we would do is then select a time frame which is best suitable to these kind of reports. For instance, selecting the first day of the previous month till the last day of the previous month. So we can actually schedule this to run on the first or the second day of every month, and then it will just dump all of the data from the previous month. So this will always be the same, but every time it will follow to the next month. So if you select all of these options, then especially from a report that you have run already, then it will actually pick up all of your settings, and then you can give it a name, you can publish it, and you can place it in a management pack. And then from there, you will find a folder, which is the same as the management pack folder name, and then the report will be in there. And next, everybody who has access to your SCOM reporting can actually run this report and get a result. Now from here, what you can also do is schedule the report to run every month. So scheduling this will send these reports monthly into, for instance, the mailbox of a manager in a PDF format, or you can run it and send it to your own email address. So in this case, I am trying to schedule this report. I gave it a name. I selected the delivery method, which might be, for instance, email or file share. And from there, I select the email address, obviously. I select a format. So in this case, I selected one of the PDF formats. And from there, use a subject. So this email will get a subject with the report name in it and the execution time when it was run. Now let's see this in a demo. Let me pull up a demo environment where we have some reporting available. So first of all, I'm going into the reporting pane. There's the Microsoft generic report library right there. And I go to performance detail. First of all, look at the bottom of this screen. It has all kinds of information, how to use it, what are possibilities. We will not go into that one completely now, because we will just run the report. I will run it first, and then you will run it also on your environment during exercise 1. So let's click this report and open it up. First of all, we need to select a time frame. So there's the From button here, the option. It has a drop down which contains some of the most used options, but there's also a specific date in advanced. So let's pick yesterday to today and keep the time as it is right now. So only I change yesterday here. Next, to the right hand side, go to the change button to actually define what you want to do. At the top, we are clicking new series first, which will create a new graph. Then at the bottom, we will select add group. And add group, we can, for instance, say all Windows computers. Click search, and then we find all Windows computers in the middle. We click add to add it to the selection at the bottom and click OK. And next we have to look at the right hand side to actually select a rule. So let's look at processor time. Right. So I type processor time, I click search, and what I get are a number of rules which are related to processor time. So what I see here is I have several management packs where these rules are residing. As you can see, this one is for the Windows 2008, Windows 2012, and Windows 2016 operating system. I will select the one for the Windows 16 and higher operating systems here, because that's what I have on most of my machines. I click OK, and now I have one series targeted at all Windows computers, looking at the processor time total. And I click OK. And next, at the top of the report, there is this green Run button in order to run the report. All right. So this has run the report. I will scroll down a little bit. There's a report time when I actually executed this. The report duration was for 1 day. It will show here that I ran it across 15 objects. So apparently I have 15 servers in this demo environment with a SCOM agent to this machine. And they are Windows 2016 or higher. And over here is the graph. So the graph will show CPU time, which is usually quite low. And at some point in time, at least one of the machines was higher. So it actually went up to about 100%, which basically pulled up the average value as well. And at the bottom, there's also a detailed table, if you are interested in that, which shows these data per time period. Now, in order to find out which of these 15 servers is actually causing this, I can select here the plus sign next to the actions word, the actions option, and select performance details for every object. So this is the important one. Now, while this runs, this will actually create a child report, as I call it. It's a sub-report, which now contains the same rule, but for one specific server. So every graph is now for only one server. So this one will be for T55. Keep an eye on the y-axis on the left-hand side, because it only shows what kind of data is in this report. So normally in CPU, you would expect the y-axis to go from 0 to 100%. However, since there's only very low values in this graph, it'll only show from 0 to 8. So keep your eye always on that one as well. So this one is going from 0 to 4%. This machine is using sometimes 15%. So let's scroll down a little faster to find the one with the peak. So this is one machine with a peak CPU usage of about 80% at one point in time. So we have found at least one of the culprits, one of the servers which was very busy at some point in time. Now, in order to go back to the main report, there is a blue button here called Back to Parent Report. You can actually also export this report. So let me show how that works first. Click on File, Export, and you will have several features or several options in here, such as exporting to PDF. So I can click this and the report will be generated. And I can save it somewhere to a temporary folder saying, hey, this is the performance detail of one day in December, let's say. Right, I save it and then we have a PDF of this one. Now I can click the blue button to return to the parent report. And now we are back in the main report here with the 15 management pack objects. So this is what you will do in the exercise in a minute. One thing I wanted to point out in the demo would be the other options. So we have, for instance, here a publish option, which would then put this report all the way over here in the back on the left hand side in the reporting pane. You will see at the bottom authored reports and favorite reports. So publishing it will put it into the authored reports, and the favorites will put it in the favorite reports. I can also publish this report. So let's call it something strange because I just only selected one specific day. That doesn't matter. And next it will put it somewhere. So it will actually put it in the author reports. The next one possibility would be to save it to a management pack. In this case, I could say performance report for 28 November, because I really specified a specific date in here. And I can put it into one of the management packs, for instance, the TopQore reports management pack. And if I click finish, then it should publish it in there and it will show up later. And of course, you can schedule a report with a report description, select email, and here you can specify where you want to send it to. If you want to include the report itself, which would then be, for instance, in PDF, a normal priority, it will have a subject. You could put a comment in there and you can include a link to the reporting area in there as well, or you can just leave the link out and fill out the wizard. Now I will cancel this one first and move back into the slides. Right. So now there is an exercise one. It is about the performance detail report. Because this is only a report, you can run this in any SCOM environment as long as it's about 2012 and up. It doesn't matter if it's a test or production environment, it's just running a report, so you are not going to make any changes. Again, you can find all of these exercises and the prerequisites at the TopQore website. Select the SCOM-a-thon workshop there or find it in the webinar section, and the link to the lab manual will be near the bottom. Now, can the moderator please set a timer for at least 10 minutes for this exercise? All right, we are back from the exercise. So I have some exercise questions in here. Exercise 1. Could you run the performance report details successfully? And could you drill down into the separate graphs for each object in your case? Now, answer these for yourself. Let's move on into the presentation. SLA. So some of the reports which are also important are around SLA or health and availability. So you might want to know if, for instance, a website has been running throughout the last month or last week, and what its availability was, and in some cases if it conforms to an SLA. So first of all, looking at health availability report, this is again one of the default generic reports. It is called availability report. You can select a number of objects in here and it will show you the uptime in percentage and also what is considered uptime in this case. So if it is red, then it will show up as downtime, even if it was still up but had another major issue. So always keep your eyes on what is actually the reason why it was down. So sometimes these do need to have some explanations to management. If the values go into the red or gray, what was actually going on? Because that would be the first question. And were we down completely, or was there just a problem with this specific website? The next would be SLA reporting. So what you can do within SCOM is you can set SLT or SLO targets, so service level tracking. You can set it from the authoring pane, management pack objects, and then there will be service level tracking. What you can do here is you can set up service level tracking for a distributed application. For instance, I just selected 2 distributed applications that I had running here. One was for Exchange 2013 and the other one was for Microsoft SCOM. And I set my SLA targets right in here in the wizard. So what you can do is you could say, hey, I think 95% is acceptable or 90%. And when you run this default report, which is called the service level tracking summary report, you will see for the duration of the report, which was, well, a few years ago when I created this one, the screenshot, it was for only 1 day. It was red for the Exchange and green for SCOM. But looking at the last week and last month, then you can actually also look back a little bit further and see what the differences are. So first of all, let me ask you, are there any questions about the SCOM reporting basics part? If there are, then the moderator could pause the recording and open up the floor for questions before resuming the session. All right, moving on to our next session. So our next section in this workshop is about SCOM tuning and especially alert tuning. So, SCOM tuning, why are you tuning SCOM? First of all, to avoid some of the alerts. As you know, SCOM can create a lot of alerts and sometimes they are valid and sometimes you might get a feeling that they are invalid. That's always a point of debate, which we will touch upon later as well in this session, but very shortly. Otherwise, the debate will always keep on going. But in some cases, you want to tune a little bit down according to your specifics in your environment. Another reason might be to avoid unneeded data collection. So if you are collecting a lot of performance counters or Windows events, this might fill up the SCOM data warehouse pretty fast, and actually both databases will be filled up and contain a lot of data. As long as a database has more data, it takes longer to index, longer to back up. It also takes longer to query data from it. So you might want to look at that one as well. So one of the goals for SCOM tuning is also to improve the speed of SCOM. So that'll be a nice goal, but also to align with the reality of your business and setup. You might, for instance, have a slower storage system and you don't want to have constant reminders that your storage will go over, let's say, 20 milliseconds for average write and read times for your logical disks, while, for instance, in your case, 40 milliseconds is acceptable and good. So then you might tune these monitors and rules. So how about some things that affect SCOM and you? First of all, data volume, so the number of performance counters and event log entries collected. It basically affects mostly SCOM because it just bloats your databases and everything around it. Now there's also alert numbers. Alert numbers is what is very visible to you and all of the SCOM users, right? Because if they open up a SCOM console, they first go to the all alerts view. And if there are a large number of those and they are all red and yellow, then it kind of bothers some people as well, because you don't know where to start. Same goes for any other dashboarding tool. So that one affects mainly you. However, of course, it will also affect SCOM. Now, state changes is what makes the objects in your SCOM go red and green, basically, or any of the other potential colors. So if you have a lot of state changes, monitors flipping back and forth between red, yellow, and green, you will see that SCOM will slow down because, well, it has a lot of calculation to do. But also you will be affected, especially if you're looking at state views, or if you have third-party dashboarding tooling, such as, for instance, from Squared Up or Live Maps. So these will be very visible, especially if you're having them on a wall somewhere. And so this will affect you and SCOM as well. So one of the common solutions that we want to talk about here is overrides. So you can use overrides to change the way SCOM monitors as well. Right, so an overrides management pack. First of all, what you do in order to make some overrides is to create a separate management pack to store those overrides in. So I would create separate management packs for separate products. For instance, one for the SQL management pack and one for the Windows management pack and one for the DNS management pack. What I would not do is, for instance, if you have the old SQL management pack versions, you will see that you will have about 70 management packs in there just for SQL. I would not create 70 override management packs for those, but you might want to create one for 2008 and one for 2012 and one for, of course, the modern one. So keep an eye on that. Create separate ones, but don't overdo it, because otherwise people won't know where to store their overrides. Consider a naming convention for the overrides management packs as well. So what we see a lot is maybe some company indication, maybe some first letters of a company name or the company name itself, followed by the word overrides, and then a dash, and then maybe the name of the management pack or the product which the overrides are for. Versioning of override management packs or custom management packs as well, actually. What I often use is 1.year.month.follow-up number, because I might make many changes during one day, especially if I'm creating some custom monitoring for something, for a product. So in this case, I will use 1.the-year20.the-month 12 December .follow-up number 2. And one thing to keep an eye on is notes and comments. You can actually put some notes and comments into your overrides, as we will see in a second. Right, so manual overrides. So if you see an alert in the SCOM management console in the monitoring pane, you might decide to override this for something. So the first thing you need to decide is your target. So what is going to be the override target? Usually what I prefer to do is target it at the same class as what it is targeted at in the first place. So for instance, if it is about SQL database, then I will also override it for SQL database. But also you could select the group or maybe a specific object. We will come back to that later as well. So I right-clicked some alerts. I clicked override for some kind of a target, which is the cluster servers in this case. At the top over here, I created an override for enabled. I actually forgot to set it to false, but you could do that. And the next thing, what I usually do is I go first to the bottom of the screen and select the management pack where I will be storing it. So don't put it in the default management pack. Always store it in a management pack like overrides, in this case Windows Server, because it was Windows Server related. Then what you can do is you can go back up to the middle part here, and there's a little edit option right there with the red arrow indicating it. If you click it, you can actually put in your name and date and say, hey, why was this override created? This is for later reference, so you can actually find out what's going on, who made the change, etc. This is actually the way to do it before auditing started, but it is still the best way because you can specify why you are doing it. Or maybe you have some kind of an incident or change number which you can put in here from your ITIL systems. Select the correct MP, add a note. Those are the main things to look at. So strategy one, let's talk about some strategies. It doesn't cover everything, obviously, but one thing we use a lot, or which I think is very useful, is to run this report at least weekly. So it's called the data volume by management pack report. We will look at it in the next exercise as well and in the demo. It looks like this. So what it will show in this case is a top, I don't know what I selected, top 20 management packs by data volume. Mostly what you will see is that the performance counters and the event counters always win. So they are always at the top. And in this case, that is the case as well. So the first thing you want to look at while looking at this kind of report is why. So why is this thing at the top of this screen? Why is the Microsoft SQL Server, for instance, collecting 24% of the data? Is this number of performance counters very high or not? And in your production environment, you might not be looking at 24,000, but 24 million performance counter entries in one day. And then in that case, it might become very important to look at, right? Also, I want to call out one thing for the SCOM admins, which is very nice to look at, are the community reports called SCOM Health Check reports. They are created by Pete Zerger and Oscar Landman. These contain a lot of information regarding your SCOM environment, and you will want to have those as well. But the one we are looking at right now is in the default SCOM reporting. So there are a number of columns in here. Actually, normally there's one more column in here as well, which we will discuss in a second. It just did fit the screenshot a little bit better in this case. So first of all, what you are looking at is data volume, right? That's also why it's called that way, the report data volume by management pack. So the first things you will look at are performance and events, because these are usually the very high numbers. So for performance, for instance, you might be looking at, in this case, in my screen, it will be SQL, followed by Windows operating system, followed by DNS, and then maybe some others as well. In your case, you will have, well, I think these two will be somewhere in the top 5 anyway, but you might have others as well. Events, depending on your tuning level and what goes on in your environment, these might be relatively low numbers into the thousands or 10,000s, but it might also be into the millions per day, in which case it becomes very important to look at, do you actually need this data? Why is it here? Is it maybe because some computer is broken on your network? Well, in that case, you can fix it, and then the number of alerts or events in this case will go down. But if it is related to collecting something which you will never look at in SCOM, in the SCOM console, then you might want to turn it off. So the next thing we are looking at is what we call config churn. And these consist out of the following 3 columns. So the alert count. The alert count, of course, is very visible to you because it generates alerts in the SCOM console. But also keep in mind that some of these alerts might come and go during the night and you did not see them. So you might see a very high alert count here and not be aware of it. Same goes for state changes. State changes is when something turns red and green or goes into maintenance mode and comes back out. So all of these are state changes and they can add up very much. So SCOM has to do a lot of calculation there. There are many roll-ups moving up from the object into the parent objects, and all of them will turn red or green depending on what's happening. And then there are discoveries as well. So let's look at a quick example of this before doing the exercise. So let me close up this report and let me go in here in the reporting pane, go to the System Center Core Monitoring Reports folder. And there you will find the data volume by management pack. There are actually also some other things in here. I like to use the one with the management pack. So what I do is I want to select from yesterday to today, because I don't want to see very high numbers. I just want to have that. I will select a top 30 management packs to show, and I click run. Now I wait for a little bit for it to display. All right, so we have it here. Let's see what happens if I make it a little bit bigger. There we go. I hope you can read it now. So let me scroll a little bit. So what we can see immediately are a number of management packs. These are the top ones, creating some kind of a data volume. In my case, the SQL Server management pack is creating 44% of the total volume. And what we can also immediately see is that the performance counter column is the one which is basically calling the shots for this top 30 report. So first of all, we are looking at what is going on here. So I want to know, for instance, for the SQL management pack, what this performance counter number is. So I click on that number, and that takes me to a sub-report, which I can now investigate. So let me scroll down a little bit. So what we can see here is that this data is coming from a rule. Well, all of them in this case are coming from a rule because it's performance collection. And we can see the exact name of the rule. So MS SQL on Windows, DB active connections count. And we can see what the number of performance counter entries is. So in this case, 3,600 for the last 24 hours. And then moving down this list, we can see a number of counters also targeted at database. And they likely have similar collection intervals, like every 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. And you can see all of these here. So the first thing you might want to ask is, hey, do I actually need all of these? Do I, for instance, have an interest for database free space total? Yes, likely I do. But do I have an interest for DB free autospace MB or active sessions count? Maybe not. So if I'm not interested in that, then that gives me a possibility to turn it off, right? In that case, I would, if I want to do it manually, which is one of the options we are talking about today, is we could select here the name of the rule, put it in some kind of a notepad, and then go and find those rules back in here in the SCOM authoring console, find the rule and disable it or change the interval. So for instance, if you change the interval from 10 minutes to every 20 minutes, then this would halve the counter here in this table. And if you do that for a number of these, then you can imagine, especially at large numbers where these make a lot of changes in the database volume. So I can click the blue button here at the top, go back to the parent report, and this brings me back into this report where I can investigate something else. For instance, I can investigate event count in very much the same way. So one of the things that I want you to do is at the very top, there is a show height parameter area, or there is a view parameters option, which will take you back in here. And I want you to deselect the performance and events, and then run this thing again. So now we will see some different things. So all of these are now looking at config churn. So do we see anything happening? I can see, for instance, some state changes coming from the Windows Defender, from cluster disks, from APM or Windows operating system. I see, well, very little alerts in this case. I'm lucky because this is a demo environment. There's nothing much happening here. And obviously we want to look at discovery data, because if this number is very high, then it might be something wrong with the management pack. So state changes, there's always going to be something like the health library on top, because it has all of the roll-ups for everything below this. So you will see that one likely sitting at the top. So if I, for instance, fix something in the Windows Defender management pack, or on these machines which are causing it to turn green and red, or whatever state changes this was, this will immediately affect the number at the top for the health library, all of the rollups as well. So let's move back into the deck and go into the exercise. So exercise 2, data volume by management pack. This is this report. You can run it on your own. You can run it against a SCOM 2012 or higher, preferably. It could be production or test, because you are not making any changes as long as you have access. Again, I put the link to the location where you can find the lab manual, but I'm sure you have it by now. So can the moderator please set a timer for about 10 minutes for this exercise? Right, coming back. We have some exercise 2 questions. So let me ask you, what are your top 3 high volume management packs? Maybe you can put them in the chat or in the discussion pane, whatever is here. What we often see is SQL, Windows operating system, Linux operating system, Veeam for the VMware monitoring, and network. They often come up as regulars at the top. So show me what's there, and we can discuss if needed. And otherwise, we will move on to the next part. All right, coming back. Another strategy for tuning alerts and management packs is to do this while adding new management packs to your system. So if you have some kind of a new technology that you want to add a management pack for, what you could do first is only place the discovery management pack. On some of these Microsoft management packs, they come actually as a list of multiple sub-management packs. And one of these is usually like a library or discovery. And then there will be another one for monitoring or reporting or views. If that is the case, then try and add only the discovery management pack first and see if it actually finds a number of your machines having these instances. And from there, you can actually also discuss the different tuning levels, because you might find out that some of these machines, they are actually test servers or acceptance and production. And you might want to have a conversation with the product specialists about this. So this is very important, especially while adding monitoring for different kinds of products. You will have to have a discussion with the product specialist because they might want to see certain things or not want to see certain things. And of course, to show them what are the advantages, but also they might say, hey, can you get rid of monitoring all of these test servers because they are flip-flopping, and then maybe alerting them during the night or bothering them during the day. So alert tuning, you could just, put a management pack in, maybe first use it in a test environment, a SCOM test environment or a SCOM acceptance environment, which is also used especially in the bigger environments. What you can do is just let the alerts come in and see how you tune them from there. That is a possibility, right? So you could start in a test environment and then say, hey, what do we need to tune from here? What do we need to change? What you will often hear from some operators, SCOM operators from the different groups is, hey, turn everything off, or hey, I want to turn this off. And then if you ask why, they will just say, yeah, just because I say so, or just turn it off. I don't know what it is. So this often already points to a problem, because if they don't know what it is, then maybe they should first look into it, because it might actually be that something is broken. And if you turn off everything, then you will also not see it if there's anything broken. And you can bet that the manager next time comes in and says, why did you not see this? Well, and then, doesn't SCOM actually cover this or monitor this? Well, actually we do, but we turned it off. An exception to this is collection rules. So what we often do is when we look at tuning management packs, we might turn off a lot of the collection rules, so performance collection rules and event collection rules, and then turn them on one by one, depending on if we are actually using them in some of these views and dashboards. So which are important to show, okay, then we will enable those, and then we will keep the rest disabled. Also, be very careful while adding overrides, especially when overriding, for instance, the same monitor. Maybe you have a CPU alert or a server alert or database alert, and you are creating 20 different overrides for the same monitor. So this is very hard to track and find back. Maybe one database has 40% free space, a problem, and the other one is 60% of a problem, and the other one 80, you will never know which other database now has which threshold. So it's really hard to find back and explain. If you are creating overrides, first try and think about, can we set this for all of the items of this class? For instance, can we make a threshold change to all of the databases? Or maybe a group of databases, or let's say all databases contained on all test servers. So in that case, you might create a group containing all test servers and then making some kind of an override based on that one. Or as a last result, you can, of course, create an override on a specific server or object. But again, it might be hard to track and hard to find back why this server is green and that server is red. Well, they are completely in the same performance counters. All right, so when looking at management packs, before adding them, or while just having added them in a test environment, a nice way of looking at what is inside of a management pack. So there are actually multiple options here. You could, import it, export it as XML, look at the code, or you can look at it from the SCOM console, see what monitors and rules and classes are in there. You could also use select management pack author, MP author, which is a free version of the MP author suite, and open up the management pack and see what it's doing. Another tool is MP viewer, which is very easy to use tool. I want you to at least have a look at that. So that's why it is in one of the next exercises. So some of the things which it will show you, which you want to know for every management pack is, hey, what kind of classes do I have? What are some of the monitors and rules going on? You might find out that there are a lot of performance collection rules in there. Hopefully they also use the display name as performance collection rule, and then you will actually see that as well. The views can be seen from here and a lot more. And there's a possibility to export to Excel. Now, there are different versions of MP Viewer out there. One of them is an additional fork on GitHub by a Belgian guy who created some additional features into MP Viewer. So let's have a look at that. If I can quickly find it. Okay, let's get rid of all of this. Oh, that's getting rid of the whole screen. That's not what we wanted. Let me dive into the tools. So I've downloaded MP Viewer. In this case, this one. All right, this opens up the screen. We're going to File, Load Management Pack from Management Group. You will immediately see which version of MP Viewer you have, because the original MP Viewer does only load from file, and this one will actually load from Management Pack from Management Group as well. So I will have to put in a server, and in my case, I can just leave the account settings because my account has access. At least I hope so. Yes, it does. All right, so I get a list of management packs which are currently loaded in my SCOM management group. So let's see what I want to know. I want to know maybe the Microsoft Windows Server 2016, discovery, monitoring, and maybe I have some overrides for Windows Server. I will also pick up that one. And at the bottom, I will click OK. All right. So in this screen, I'm sorry if it's a little bit small, actually. On the left-hand side, I can see what kind of things are inside of this management pack. For instance, classes, which is open right now. So it has the Windows Computer class. It has logical disk, logical processor, operating system. And at the bottom, it will show the raw XML belonging to this class and maybe the knowledge pane. I can also see in which management pack this is residing in one of the columns, so the management pack column. So you can see there are console tasks, dashboards, dependencies, discoveries, which is interesting. So I can now see that there are discoveries for Windows Logical Disk, for instance. It is running at the frequency. It's set to enabled true. So it will try and find these objects. But for instance, looking at physical disks, it is not discovered by default. So logical disks are, which is in your case usually the C drive, D drive, whatever, but the physical partition, physical disk is usually not discovered. Because in many cases, you know, these are VMs and it's not that important to look at. But in other cases, you might want to look at enabling these. Other things which are important are the unit monitors. So there's a lot of loading going on here. So if I go to a unit monitor, for instance, available megabytes of memory, I will have the knowledge sitting here belonging to this monitor. I can see what kind of a monitor this is. This is performance health. So in the health model, you will see if this thing turns red or yellow, it will show in the performance health part. It is enabled true. It generates alert true, off type error, so it will be a red one. And then there's a description and the management pack it is sitting in, which is the monitoring management pack. I can look at the raw XML as well if I need to. In this case, what is important to look at, or maybe interesting, is the interval seconds. I can see this is set to 900, which would be every 15 minutes. So some things here which are interesting. I can click into the overrides because I did select in one of the override management packs in there. But actually also there might be some overrides inside of a sealed management pack. So in this case, I set the error threshold to false for some kind of a server. I can't remember why anymore, but at least I can see it right now. And then of course the rules is another important thing, especially while tuning, because look at this. There's a collection rule right here. For performance collection, I can see one right here, which states in the middle, event collection in the middle column. So it might be interesting, for instance, to turn some of these performance collection rules off. Actually, I see a number are enabled false by default, but some are enabled true. And then you can scroll down, and some of them are performance collection, but they do not call themselves performance collection. But this way you can still find out how many there are and if they are interesting to you or not. So I see a lot of performance collection and event collection going on in this list while scrolling down. So I might not be interested in all of these, and some of these are disabled by default. But this also means that you might want to enable one of those if you are interested in these. So once I've looked at this a little bit, what I can actually do is I can click Save to Excel. So File, Save to Excel. What this will do is I will put it in the Windows Server. I will just override it because this is the one I'm looking at anyway. Question is, where did I put it? I think in the temp, yes. I will open it up. So I can see here that I had multiple management packs selected, which version. Then at the bottom of the screen, you will see the different tabs. So monitors unit, so these are the unit monitors. Again, it will show the names, if they are enabled or not, if they generate an alert, what kind they are, you know, if they are remotable. So all of these things, and in which management pack they are. So you could go through these, go through the rules, and you can actually give this one, or you know, save it as a real Excel file, let's say, and not an Excel XML, and then take away the tabs which are not interesting, and then show that to, for instance, one of the teams. So the Windows team, or the SQL team, or the network team, if that is applicable to you. So this is what we also will do for this session. So let me go back out here. So I will close this screen. That was the demo for Management Pack Viewer. So the next exercise which you will do is Management Pack Viewer, MP Viewer, load the MP Viewer tool, connect to the management group that you have, investigate one of the management packs or a few, click around a little bit to see what possibilities there are and what options there are, and the next, then save to Excel. Open up the Excel and see if you can see at the bottom the management pack view, the unit monitors view, the rules view. And that is about it for this exercise. You will see it there. Again, you can download the manual from our website. You can find it there. So can the moderator please set a timer for about 10 minutes for this exercise? All right, going back into the monitoring part. So overrides. We've been talking about overrides and some tooling around it. So one of the community available tools is Override Explorer. It is a very simple, small tool. What it is used for is you can try to find currently set overrides. At some point, sometimes it's a little bit hard to click through it and see what it's actually doing, because it is usually based on classes. But if you use this a little bit, if you mess around a little bit with it, you will actually find quite easily what it does and how to use it. It also has a possibility to move or copy overrides to another management pack. So in some cases, I've seen overrides being placed in the wrong management pack, and I actually needed to move a few of them over. So maybe there are some SQL overrides sitting in the DNS management pack overrides. And I don't want them there. I just want to move them. So this is the tool to do it with. Of course, before you start doing that, make a backup of your management packs first. I will show you this tool in a second. Then another tool is the override creator. So another one, again, also from the community, originally created by Boris and then later adjusted a little bit by Daniela. You can find it on Kevin Holman's tools page where you actually hopefully downloaded this already. What you can use this for is you can bulk create overrides and not just create them one by one manually, because that takes a lot of time, but you might bulk set overrides to rules or monitors. So it will also be looking at classes, and then it will have a split between monitor and rules. Next, you can, for instance, multi-select a number of rules and override them all at the same time. All right, so let's demo this. Let's have a look. Going in here. SCOM Override Explorer. I downloaded it. Let's run it. All right, so at the top, File, Connect. Connect to your management server name. This is mine. It will start loading. Depending on your environment, this might take longer, obviously, but this is just a test environment. So to the left, you will see a lot of, there will be a type-based view. So you will see a lot of classes in there. Then you will also find a computers-based view. But usually I use the type-based view first. So let's move again, for instance, to the Windows 2016 operating system. So I will see some here for the production, for the operating systems class. I can open this up and I will see for logical disk monitors, there is logical disk free space monitor. So it looks like I have an override sitting here. I have an override sitting here in the management pack called TQ test pack, which is not a sealed management pack. So it is an unsealed one. So you can change this. It is targeted at the C drive. And it looks like somebody made some changes to the system drive error megabytes threshold to set it to 50 gigabytes and 50% error percentage. So what we can actually do here is we can right click, we can delete it from here, or we can move it to a different management pack. So if I would select that, move to a different management pack, then I can select from all of my unsealed management packs and select one where I want to move it. So let's cancel out of this. Some other things which we might have is we might have a website check. There's a discovery. The discovery is set to true, and you can see what management pack it is in. Obviously, you will also see some overrides which are sitting inside of the management packs themselves. So for instance, here for Windows 2012 operating system, I go into the rules. I just click any one of these. So what we can see here is that inside of this management pack, which is a sealed management pack, we will see a rule, we will see an override enabled, setting enabled to false. So it's basically disabling the rule itself for now, until you actually override it for yourself. So you cannot, for instance, delete this or move this to a different management pack because it is sitting in a sealed management pack. Now, what I want you to do a little bit later is actually have a look at these two tools, the Override Explorer, and we also will look at the Override Creator in a minute. Actually, we will do it right now. Next, I will actually show you something else first before we are starting the exercises. So Override Explorer, look through some of these things which are living in here. So you can open up these rules. You can find out if there are monitors or rules and if there are any overrides being set. For instance, over here again, I find some created by EasyTune and one created in an overrides management pack of my own, and I disabled something. Right, so let's move this one down and move into the Override Creator. All right, so open up the Override Creator. Again, connected to a management group. So I'm putting in a management server name. I will wait a few seconds and let's increase the size of this a little bit so we can see what it's doing. All right, so again, same story. You can look through the list. For instance, I could go back into the operating system 2016, which is what I wanted you to do later on, and just have a look. I can, for instance, select here the operating system because I know that there are a number of monitors and rules targeted at this one. Let me make this very big. All right. So I know that the characters are still small, but the screen is now bigger. So what we can see here in the main view, when I select the operating system, I can see a number of monitors. So about the first 30 of them are monitors, and then below that is a list of rules. So I might be interested in going down and taking these collection rules. I can multi-select these, and I can create an override to either enable or disable them. And if I create an override to disable them, then I can select why and what I want to do. So this is one thing I want you to look at first. So let me select the target management pack, which would be TQ overrides or overrides for Windows Server. So I first need to select a location where. The next thing I want you to look at is what to target your override at. Like I said earlier, you have several options. One is all instances, which in this case refers back to what we selected here, Windows operating system 2016 or higher. So if we now turn this off, it will turn this off for the class. So all machines will be impacted. But we could also turn this off for a particular group, which might be the Windows test servers group or whatever you have, or acceptance servers. Or you could turn it off for a particular instance, which I really don't use this tool for in that case. But anyway, you could select that. Next, you could give it a description. Turning off, actually, I will start with my name, initials, and time. So in this case, that's the date. Turning off performance collection rules for Windows OS. Right, so now if I click OK, it will actually create all of these overrides, so about 15 in one go, against the instance Windows 2016 operating system, not at the group. It will be placed in the overrides Windows Server, and it will have this description. So I will click console in this case. because I don't really want to create a lot of overrides today. So what I would want you to look at is especially this. So click through some of these and see the possibility at least to override and what the options are. And please don't click OK unless you are in a test environment. Let's first move back into the slide deck. Yeah, there we go. We are back. All right, so we have looked quickly at Override Explorer and Override Creator. There will be an exercise later where you can either elect to do an exercise about this topic or the next topic, which I will first talk about and show you. So, and that is this one. So one of these tools to help you make tuning easier is EasyTune. It's created by a company called Cookdown, and you can download it from this link right here. Just go to cookdown.com and find the EasyTune product. There is a free version out there, free or trial version. Actually, this is a free version. And there are some other versions there as well if you really like it. So the basic ideas, and this is my interpretation of this, because I'm not a salesperson for EasyTune, so I can just do this right now. So what this tool does is it gives you the opportunity to create your own tuning settings or use some predefined sets of tuning for management packs coming from the community. So some community members will have created some basic override settings, specs, specifications for instance, Windows operating system, or for nice Oracle monitoring, or Veeam, or SQL, those kind of things. And what they will do is they will set different levels of tuning per management pack. So to just give an example, they can give these names themselves and set some. What we usually like is, for instance, a discovery only. So you can set it to only discover, and it will disable everything else. Basic and balanced, maybe you want to use that for test servers, acceptance servers. And there's also a full, which you might like for production servers, for instance, or only to run that during the day. And of course, you can set your own custom settings as well. By using, you could also make a start by using one of these community packs, putting it into your own store, and then customizing another custom level to it, and then adding it back in, and then you can actually target this at either, again, all objects of a class, or a group, or a specific object. So what we would usually do is use the first two options, because if you create a lot of separate tuning against one specific object, again, sometimes it might be difficult to find it back and answer some questions about it. So what does it look like? First of all, this is a screenshot. So if you download EasyTune, there will be a guide of what to do. But basically, you import it, install it, and then if you go into the SCOM administration pane, you will find EasyTune Cookdown right here, tuning packs. There's actually also a reporting pane, which you can look at later. So the tuning packs, in this case, it will pull this from a GitHub repository sitting on the internet. So in your case, if you are in a very closed environment, you might not have access to that. So it might not show this custom repository, but then you can still create your own tuning management packs right here. So in this case, I selected the Windows Server 16 and higher management pack. I can see below that Nathan Foreman was the author of this community-based set. There should be a community page link in here. I don't know why it's not in the screenshot, but it's really there. I can show you that in a second. And you can see here in bold the custom tuning levels that in this case he specified. One of them is the management pack default, which is just coming with the management pack itself. And then in this case, it looks like he has a discovery only, and then essentials unbalanced, and a full monitoring set. And then to the right-hand side, you can see a number of tuning pack actions. So you can actually start tuning your environment right from here by using one of these custom settings. Again, against all objects, a group or a specific object. Or you can copy this set to a custom store, which is your store in this case. You can configure that right below that. We will actually look at that in a second as well. And then you can change these settings. All right, so let's first talk about, there are multiple versions of this. So looking back at the screenshot for 1 second, right in the middle of this, you can see this gray area where it says you are using 0 of 5 management tuning packs. If you want unlimited tuning, you can move up to another version. So I can, in a free version, I can use 5 of these sets, and I can just tune something and to look at how it works. And maybe that's already enough if you have very specific needs. However, if you go to the Pro version, which should not be very expensive, it takes away this limitation of 5 tuning packs. And then there is also an enterprise version of this, which adds a lot of extra features. I've taken out 3 of those as what I feel are, well, important or interesting to me. One is capture effective tuning. So you can actually look at what is your current tuning level. How are you tuning, for instance, one of these servers or a domain controller? What is affecting this? And you can actually capture this and use this, for instance, in a migration. So if you're doing a SCOM migration to a different management group, you can move tuning in this case, but you might also set up a new tuning regime using Easy Tune in this case. But you still want to know what happened before, and that is where you can use the capture effective tuning. There's a PowerShell SDK, so you can actually automate some of these implementations of custom tuning packs. And there is a nice feature called configuration drift detection, which is basically an auditing feature. So if, for instance, you have specified some custom monitoring settings, some overrides in this tuning pack, and somebody makes a different override based on the maybe the alert pane, and finds an alert, right clicks, sets an override, and changes basically your default settings, then this one will actually discover that and say, hey, something is making a difference to what your default tuning levels are. And it will show you that. So this is very nice stuff. Let me do a short demo. Nope. Let me do a short demo. And we are doing that by connecting back up to my demo lab. I will open up SCOM console. We'll go to administration. Oh, there we go. So administration, easy tune, tuning packs. There we go. So let me take another example. So I take from the community store Microsoft SQL Server version agnostic. What we can see here at the bottom is, again, the name, description. It was created by Sean Williams, and there is the community page. So if I click it, yes, I want to continue. If I click it, I get taken to this GitHub repository where I can scroll down a little bit. All right, so SQL Server version agnostic pack tuning pack guide. It has a lot of information, but it also lists the number of levels that we have. So we have test, Q&A, production, performance monitoring, which turns on all of the performance counters, it looks like, and some, and it tells you which management packs are tuned. So let me just pull this down again. All right, so as we see also here in the tuning levels, we can see in bold that there is Q&A, test, performance, production, and the management pack default. first of all, what we can do is we can configure a custom store. This is going to be in the optional exercise in case you have this loaded up already and you are looking at this exact screen. You can configure a custom store. I just selected a local path first, just my documents. But in the end, you might select a network folder to place all of your custom tuning in. And then from there, I can take this SQL Server agnostic pack and I can say, copy this to a custom store. So this will open it up here in my custom store. And you can see this is a CSV. I can open this one in Excel. And then I can look at what this thing is actually doing. Let me see what is useful to look at. All right. Let's just take an example here. All right. So the management pack ID, I can see some of these management packs. So looking at the monitoring, I can see that there are some rules here. I can see the discoveries, what their names are. And as you can see, some of them have the similar name. However, that means that we have different kinds of things that we are overriding for them. So in this case, I have a rule here called a SQL job failed to complete successfully. In column F here, I can see override parameter name. So I can see that allow proxying can be turned on and off, enabled can be turned on and off. I can change the priority and the severity of the alert coming from it. So looking at the enabled first, what we can see is that the default value would be false. So it will default by default in the management pack be turned off. However, if we turn on the custom level called performance, then everything will be turned on. So scrolling a little bit to the right, I can actually see all of these custom levels that were defined: performance, production, Q&A, and test at the top columns. And then there's a notes column as well. So what you could do, if you wanted to, is insert a column before the notes column at the end, and then call it, I don't know, SCOMathon. And then you can start, tuning this and say, hey, I want to have this one enabled true, or maybe change the severity to 1. I don't know, doesn't matter. So if we save this one up and we reload the EasyTune console, then we will actually see this one pop up with a custom level. So it will have performance, production, QA, test, and SCOMathon. So I will just ignore this one for now. I will not save it, and I will actually remove this file. So this is the way you can actually set up custom tuning. You can also do that by creating a tuning pack yourself just from start if there's nothing here in the community store for you to easily start with. So you can use that one as well. So the next thing what we can do is, of course, we can say, hey, we want to apply this to something. So we could set, for instance, tune a group. All right, so what we get here is tune a group. Okay, we have to select the target group. So in the exercise coming up later, if you so choose to do the easy tune version of that, we can look at, I don't know if I created something here, some group. There's always going to be something with Windows, right? So let me just select all Windows computers. This is a very bad example, obviously, but you would create like a test. Oh, actually, maybe I have a test group here. Yes, some test group. Sounds good. Sounds fair. So that should mean that there are some test servers in here. So I will only apply this to this group. I will select the tuning level. So in this management pack, we already seen that there's discover only, production, Q&A, and test. So let's just go for test. What we can see in the middle of the screen are the overrides in settings. So this is actually contains a lot of information, like what are we targeting? These are the management packs we are looking at. What are the overrides we are setting? So for instance, I have a workflow, discover something, enabled is set to true. And if we scroll down a lot, then we might find one of the other rules or monitors. And we can see in this case, the enabled is set to by default to true, but now it's going to be set to false. So we are actually turning something off. All right, so the next step is we have a possibility to actually use a schedule, which is, I think, very nice. It could mean that, for instance, if you have an application which is only important during the day, during working hours, you might actually set to have heavy monitoring for these kind of things, for these systems during daytime, and have it have a different set of monitoring during the night, because you might not be interested in all kinds of errors or notifications coming from these servers, except if it's during business hours. So just an example, right? So we can see the schedule name, business hours. You can change this. You can change the schedule. And then if you move to the next part, there's a way to either select automatically create new management pack. If you do this, it will create a management pack with a custom management pack, how do you call it, naming convention, which contains the management pack, the level set, and I think also the group in this case, or you can choose an existing management pack. So one of your own. So in this case, I will select automatically create new management pack, and I will see what it will try to do. So the overrides management pack it will try to create is Microsoft SQL Server version agnostic, overrides, group name, and which tuning level I used. So in this case, the test tuning level. And again, it will show you all of this information. What is important to state is if you put it into the automatically created management pack, it will also create all of this information here below and place that into the custom knowledge of the management pack. If you use that on your own management pack, it will not create this whole table. It will just create the tuning itself. So I will cancel out of this because SQL is quite a big management pack, so it'll take a while to create all of these overrides. There might be several hundred in here. So let's click cancel to move out of this one. You want to cancel? Yes, I'm sure. All right. So we are back now. All right, let's move back. So I have shown some basics of EasyTune. So there's a custom store, how you can find the connection towards some community packs, how to apply them maybe to all of the items or to a group, to use a schedule or not. That's a possibility, and where to save it. So the next exercise is exercise. You can actually make a choice to either do exercise 4 and look at the override explorer and override creator yourself, or do exercise 5, which is the EasyTune. Obviously, the EasyTune exercise requires you to have EasyTune set up already. If you are already a user of EasyTune, then, well, this exercise might be too simple for you and you might want to have a look at exercise 4 in that case. So make a choice what you want to do. Can I ask the moderator to please set a timer for 15 minutes for this exercise? All right, we are coming back. Coming back from the exercise. So if there are any exercise questions or questions around management pack tuning, you can either ask them directly here, or obviously you have the chat or Q&A function inside of these SCOM-a-thon tooling, depending on what there is. We will be around to answer some questions. So either the moderator can pause this at the current time, or we can move on towards the next section. So I will have a short pause here. All right, moving on to the next part of this workshop for today. So one of the other topics which we selected earlier, or which actually you selected earlier also by voting, is SCOM auditing features. So I want to quickly go through this with you to show you what is going on with this. So this is something which has been asked for a long time, for many years. We want to have some more insights into auditing. So before the release of Update Rollup 2, it was very difficult to find back who was doing overrides, when they were doing it, and if they were not using the notes belonging to setting a manual override, then it was really hard to find out why somebody was doing that. So all of this information was not included yet. However, now in SCOM 2019 Update Rollup 2 is the first version where the audit reports have been added. So what does it look like? In the SCOM reporting pane, again, Microsoft generic report library, you will see these three management packs or reports, I'm sorry, you will see these new reports included and added. So let me show in screen what this looks like. So management pack history. So this is a thing to look at what has been happening to your management pack. Has somebody been importing a new management pack or changing something in a management pack? So if you make a change, for instance, import and export, or update a current management pack, you will actually see both a delete and an install. So it will delete the old version and install the newer version of the same management pack. Or maybe something will be added. For instance, in the screenshot, the Synology management pack that we have created somewhere in the past. So it will create the name of the management pack, the version, the date, the action, and which administrator has been doing this change. The second report will be around management pack objects. It will actually give you a number of possibilities. So in this case, we selected the last 2 days. What kind of actions do we want to see? Maybe new, delete, or edit, and the types of objects. So are we looking at monitors or rules, or maybe discoveries? What is all of this going on? So looking at the report itself, we can see the object name. So maybe there's a rule or a module being affected. We can see what the old value is, what the new value is, the date, and of course, again, who did this. So who is the username? And then the third report is around overrides. So we've been talking about overrides today a lot. And this one actually shows you some of that as well. So we can look at overrides from maybe only a little bit of time in this case, but that's just for the screenshot. But we have some criteria which we can select, or we can go for a specific username to see if this specific user has been creating overrides in the last month, for instance. So in this TopQore test pack, we see an override, monitor property, database file, free space monitor, enabled. It changed from true to false. And who made that change? It was my colleague in this case, because it's a test pack, right? So this is how it works. Let me quickly do a demo environment. All right, so go to reporting, go to generic report library, and open up management pack history. So there is an optional exercise at the end of this, because it is only included in SCOM 2019 update rollup 2. I didn't make it a fixed one, because if the half of you don't have that version running in either in a lab or in production, you cannot really run this. So I made it an optional. So I will show you what it does right here. So by default, it sets today minus 7 days. I can just run this. So I can see what has been happening to these management packs. I will scroll down a little bit. So we can see either a service account making some changes to the SQL Server overrides. That is actually because I selected, how do you call it, the schedule earlier to change the overrides between times of day. But I can also see that, for instance, with my own account, I did a delete and install of the TopQore reports. That was because a little bit earlier today, I published something inside of that TopQore reports management pack, which then causes it to update. And that update will be a delete and an install at the same time. So that is what this report does. The other one, management pack objects. Let me select, I don't know, previous month, first day. All the management packs. Yeah, show me everything. It's a demo environment, so it's likely not going to contain that much. Only 12 pages, okay. Let me make this a little bit larger. Right. Oh, that's the wrong one. 150%. Okay, let's do this. So I have this this management pack TQ custom scomathon. There is a number of servers inside of a group. What we can also see is in the TQ test pack, we can see a discovery being created. So in this case, there is no old value, there's only the new value of true. This was a web page. So a web page monitor actually contains a number of things to check for. And adding one of those will actually also add all of these sub-monitors belonging to it. So for instance, a check for the base page, if there's a DNS resolution failure or links on a base page failures, and it will just create all of them. And we can see again the username who created this. For instance, also here for EasyTune, I saw you that my colleague Martijn Weterings has been playing around with this a little bit. So enabling or actually disabling discovery. And this is how you can go through this report. So if you want to do this yourself, you can actually just go into your SCOM management group and run these reports. I will also do the overrides tracking report. Run this from, I don't know, previous week, Monday. Let's see if there's any overrides being changed. Right, turns out it is. So this is looking at the SQL management pack as it looks like. So I can see the test pack is in here. In the test pack, I can see some overrides for SQL core library or for SQL on Windows discoveries. And I can see that I actually made some changes this time. We can see the old values, the new values for, in this case, enabled. So the discovery enabled was set to true and is set to true again right now. But normally it would be true and false and changing the settings. So I can scroll down and see what has been going on. Looks like I have been messing around with this in the last few days a lot. Well, that's about correct. So if you have SCOM 2019 update rollup 2 or higher, there is an optional exercise in your lab manual. You can just run that right after the session. It'll probably take you only a few minutes to just open up these reports, select maybe last week or last month, and just run them and look through them to see what you can see there. All right, let's move this stuff down again. All right, so that was the end of that demo. All right, what's coming up? So there is more coming up. Obviously, the SCOM product team had to make a choice last time with the update rollup 2 what to include, because there are many questions and many things that people want included. So they are currently still working on even more stuff. Some of these things coming up in update rollup 3 are expected. These two are the agent level changes. So if the agent level, for instance, if you updated the agents to a different update rollup, it'll show up. And the monitor health reset. So if somebody is manually resetting the monitor health a lot, you might want to see that happen and see why this is going on. So we are expecting these features to come out in update rollup 3, which is, well, not that far away. We just started testing these in private previews, so it'll come. All right, so there's an optional exercise right here called SCOM auditing. The prerequisite, obviously, would be SCOM 2019 update rollup 2. Otherwise, these reports will not be available. However, we will not stop this the recording for this because you can run this right afterwards. And this is to include basically all of the other participants who are not at this level right now yet. So you can run this exercise later if you have the required SCOM level. Now let's move on to the next step. The sessions recap. So today we have had 3 parts of this session. The first session was about reporting basics. So there will be another session about reporting later in this week, going much deeper into customizing this reporting. What we have talked about were the stakeholders. So who might be interested in reports and what kind of different reports there are. Empty reports, what you can do. Performance reports. We have actually done a performance report exercise for that as well. Availability and SLA kinds of reports. And we have talked about exporting, saving, and scheduling reports, which might be very important to you in the future. All right, so a recap of the second part of today's workshop was alert tuning. So alert tuning is essential. We talked about why this is the case. You know, a large data volume might cause a slowdown of your databases, but also it impacts the whole infrastructure because you also need to back it up. And all of these agents need to collect all of these counters and send it across the network towards your management servers and databases. So it all takes additional time. If you don't need some of these extra data, you can keep it out. Another thing is for the config, so things like alerts, which you are very familiar with, I bet, and state changes, so dashboards moving from red to green. This is something you want to look at as well because it impacts you yourself, but also, again, SCOM in the backend. Establish a process for alert tuning. This is very important. Make sure people understand also what you are doing. Put in a process, for instance, also naming conventions, versioning. What tool are you going to use? How are you going to create overrides? You are not going to create overrides willy-nilly. Just, make a choice how you are going to do this. Create some tooling around this. For instance, you might use the SCOM console together with a report. You can disable some tooling, or you can use simple tooling, for instance, the Management Pack Viewer, Override Explorer, and Override Creator. There's Easy Tune, and there are many more possibilities actually for alert tuning and looking into that, as long as you have a process around it and people understand what you are doing, why you are doing it. And then you can actually help other team members or members of other teams actually as well, like the database team or the Windows Server team or virtualization team, with some additional alert tuning, but also data tuning. Right. And the last session we did was around auditing, SCOM auditing. In SCOM 2019 update rollup 2, we see 3 additional management packs. So actually reports, I should say, 3 additional reports called Management Pack History, Management Pack Objects, and Overrides Tracking. And as we have talked about before, there is more to come. Now there is some time for a Q&A through either the chat or the Q&A channel in here. You can talk about anything you want. We will be happy to answer questions. The moderator can pause the session right here while we take questions. All right, now we have had all of the questions. After all of these questions, then this concludes today's workshop session on reporting basics, alert tuning, and SCOM auditing. A big thank you to the organizers of SCOMathon, the sponsors, and the speakers for this week, and also a shout out to the moderators and tutors answering questions throughout the sessions. I hope you enjoyed it, and from us, the SCOM specialists at TopQore, we wish you a great day and hope to see you again at a future webinar or on-site event. Thank you.